Hey sweet friends, welcome to Lavender and Lace. I'm Alicia, and it has been a while since I've had any videos up. Life just got kind of crazy around here for a while. A lot of things happening, and I just wasn't able to do any crafting, which really made me sad. But I wanted to share this mega Christmas in July craft video with you all. And I have a lot of new crafts and new videos planned that will be coming out soon. So I hope you stick around and subscribe to this channel. And I hope you enjoy the crafts and today's video. So let's get started. This first craft is a super simple and very quick craft. I just took some of these little wooden photo holders from Hobby Lobby, just removed the top little prong there, and I decided to just leave the fall design on the back, and these can be double duty, so I'll use them for Christmas and fall. And I got this pack of scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby, and it was 50% off, so I just flipped through and tried to decide on the design that I liked the best. I have already made a few of these to use at a craft show on my display table. So I just picked out a couple of designs that I thought would look the best with what I had chosen already. So the hardest part of this project, for me at least, was picking the paper that I wanted to use. There's just so many good choices in this pack. It was a vintage Christmas scrapbook paper pack from Hobby Lobby, as I mentioned before. And this project probably took me maybe 5 minutes at the most to complete. It is a really quick and easy project. It's one that would be good for the kids to do with you. And we homeschool, so quick and easy is what I'm all about right now. So the first thing that you would need to do, just trace your block in your paper. Just cut that out. Then you're just going to take a glue stick, just cover your block really well. And then you're just going to take your scrapbook paper, lay it on the top, and just press it down firmly. Smooth it out. Just try to get out any wrinkles if there are any. I didn't have any issues with wrinkles, and this paper was really thick, so I didn't have any problems covering up that price sticker that I left on the back. Just press it down really well around the edges and clean up any of the glue that you may have left. An emery board works really well to just clean up your edges around your projects, so I just used mine around each of the edges to remove some of that excess scrapbook paper that I had. And then I just took a sanding block that I got from Dollar Tree and went around even deeper into the block so I could remove even more of that paper. I wanted the edges to look very antiqued and distressed. So I just took my sanding block and just distressed the front a little bit as well. And then I just took a cloth and cleaned it off and just removed any of that excess dust and paper pieces. And I replaced my little prong on the top, and that is it for this project. How cute is that? And these will look great on a tiered tray, or you could even use them to make a little mini book stack. For this next project, I found a couple of these cardboard tree forms from Hobby Lobby, and I just got some of the big chunky fuzzy yarn for this first tree, and I just started at the bottom and secured it with a little bit of hot glue and just continued that all the way up the tree form. This yarn is really easy to work with since it's so thick and fuzzy. It's very forgiving, so you can just kind of move it around as you need to as you're working your way up the tree, and just adding a little bit of hot glue here and there to help hold it in place. And when you get to the top, you just put some extra glue there and just wrap it very securely. And you will just finish it off with some hot glue at the top and make sure that your tails are kind of tucked in there at the very top and hidden. I decided to use some of this berry garland just to embellish the tree a little bit, and I believe this one came from Dollar Tree. So I just started at the top and secured it down with some hot glue and just continued to wrap it all the way around the tree form. And I did try to adjust the yarn here and there as I went. And I just continued all the way down to the base of the tree, just wrapping that garland there, and I secured it to the bottom of my tree with some hot glue and just adjusting here and there as needed. And I just repeated that same process for my second tree, except I used nautical rope from Dollar Tree for this one. This nautical rope is a little bit harder to work with than the yarn is. It does want to slide around just a little bit more on your tree form, so I did have to use a little bit more hot glue on this one, and I also tried to keep my tension just a little bit tighter as I went around the tree, but I still did have some gaps that were left when I used the rope, so I decided to put these little pine cone and berry picks just around my tree. Tell me if you guys like this, if you think I should have maybe went with a different embellishment. I also decided to add some of this red and white baker's twine because, you know, sometimes I just can't leave well enough alone and keep adding stuff to my projects. But that's all I did for these two Christmas trees. So tell me what you guys think. Do you like these? Should I added the pine cones and berries and the baker's twine, or is there something else that I should have went with? I used the Krylon hammered finish and the hammered cocoa brown, and I found these metal reindeer at the Dollar Tree, and I just didn't really like the finish that they came in, so I wanted to do something that would match my decor just a little bit better. So I gave them both a really good coat of the spray paint, and it dries really quickly, and then I just went back in and did a little bit of touch-ups here and there, like around the antlers and the tail and some of the edges. So after my reindeer had dried really well, I brought them back in and I wanted to distress them. So one thing that you will learn about me if you watch any of my episodes is that I do love distressing, and I love to make things look antiqued and rustic. So I just took some of the Waverly chalk paint in white, and I did a pretty liberal amount of dry brushing around these reindeer. I did both sides, and I did try to do some of the back sides of the antlers that you could see from either the front or the back. So what do you guys think about how these reindeer turned out? I love them and I think they look amazing. Do you guys like the rustic decor or are you more modern? Just let me know what you guys like in the comments, and I can't wait to get these guys out, maybe around my fireplace with all of my other Christmas decorations. I wanted to add some smaller pieces to my Christmas decor in my kitchen and dining room area this year, and I thought these little mini rolling pins would be super cute, and I haven't actually done any of these yet. So for this one I just took some of the Waverly antique wax and just applied that to either end, and I just wiped off the excess with this paper towel and let that dry really well. So while my handles on my rolling pin were drying, I took some of the Waverly chalk paint in crimson and black and mixed up a new color. And I did just tape off the ends with some washi tape to give me some clean lines. And I really love how this color came out. It's kind of a rusty antique red, not that bright cherry red. This will go really well with the other things that I'm making for my Christmas decor this year. I wanted to just add in some new pieces, and I really am liking how this turned out. So I gave this one good coat and let that dry, and then I just went back in and had to touch up just a few little places here and there. Next I went into my Cricut design space and I just typed out a phrase that I liked, and I just cut that out with my Cricut Joy. Just weeded out my design and got ready to apply that to my little rolling pin. I used some paper transfer tape from Expressions Vinyl to apply my design to the rolling pin. This works really well when you have a painted surface. I tried to center this as best as I could, sometimes I do better than others, and just finished it off with some baker's twine and some jute. And how cute is this? So that is it for this first round of Christmas crafts. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I hope you consider subscribing and sticking around and seeing what I have coming up next for the Christmas season. Please give me a thumbs up and click that notification bell, and I hope you have lots of fun crafting and making some new things for your home this Christmas season. See you again soon. For this first project, I picked up this wooden frame from the Dollar Tree back in the fall, and I had it in my stash and I didn't use it for my fall decor, so I wanted to use it as a wall piece as a gift this year. And I started by just removing all of the price stickers and set aside the other wooden cutouts that came with this piece. And I just started staining the inside and the edges and the outer edges of this frame with my antique wax from Waverly. And I just took a paper towel and removed any of the excess. And I did stain the back as well for this piece since it will be a gift. For the background of my sign, I wanted to do the crackle effect, and the technique that I like to do the most is using Elmer's liquid school glue, and I just apply an even layer of this glue to the surface area that I want to crackle. And I don't do a very heavy coat of this. I try to get it pretty thin and spread that as evenly as I can. And I also don't worry about whether I make it up to the edges or not, because I add something else to the back of this sign to help finish that off, so you won't even really see the edges anyway. So just apply this to the back of your sign and you will not let this dry before the next step. So you will want to work fairly quickly with your glue since you don't want that to dry before you start applying your paint. And I just used some of the Waverly chalk paint in white, I believe. It was either white or plaster. I can't remember which color I went with. And I just took a foam brush and applied that evenly over the glue as best as I could. And you will do that for the entire sun that you want to crackle. And I tried to just start at the top and in the corners and work my way to the middle, and then I just turned my sign around and work the other way, trying not to layer too much of the paint in one area. And this is my favorite part of this crackle step. I just take my heat gun and start applying heat to one section of my sign and just move it around kind of like you would your hair dryer when you're drying your hair, and you will start to see these really cool crackles that will start appearing in your paint. And you will just do this all over your sign until you get the amount of crackles that you like and you think that look good for your piece. And I try not to leave my heat gun in one area for too long because sometimes your paint will start to bubble up instead of crackle, so just be careful about that. It doesn't take long at all for your crackles to start showing up in your piece, and I just love the way this looks. It just looks like it is weathered and antiqued. It is one of my favorite things to do on wall decor pieces, and this technique is super easy. It's pretty much foolproof as long as you don't just apply huge amounts of glue and the paint. When your crackle layer has had plenty of time to dry, you want to go back in with some Mod Podge and just cover that entire surface. And you will want to let this dry very well, so I usually let mine cure overnight, and then you can add your image to your background. For this project, I knew I wanted to print my image on tissue paper, and I learned this technique a few months ago, and it's one of my favorites to apply images to wall pieces. So you'll just want to take your tissue paper and make sure that you do not print on the shiny side. There's two sides to your tissue paper. There will be a matte and a shiny side, and just make sure that the matte side is what is up and that will be printed on. And then you'll just take a piece of regular computer paper and you will fold up your edges of your tissue paper all the way around the printer paper. And I just used some washi tape and printed down all of those edges, and make sure you don't have any loose pieces or overhanging pieces on your printer paper, and it will be ready to send through your printer. Have an Epson EcoTank printer, and to print my image I just put my paper face down in the tray and it just printed that out very nicely, and I love how these colors turned out. Once you've let your design dry, it is time to remove the tape. So you just carefully peel that off from the back of the tissue paper, and being extra careful not to rip your design in any way, and you'll get that ready to cut out and apply to your piece. So grab some scissors, and you're just going to want to start cutting out around your design Try to remove as much of the excess white space that you have from the tissue paper and just get as close as you can to the actual colored part of your design, and that will just help it make it look more professional and finished once you apply that to your sign. Just continue all the way around your design. And I did grab some smaller scissors to just help me get into those harder to reach areas and just continue to remove some of that excess tissue paper. Now it's time to put your image onto your sign. You just want to get that centered before you start applying your heat, and you will need a protective covering before you iron on your image. And I just use these Teflon sheets that I have on hand and my Cricut mini press, and I start working from the middle out, and that heat will just reactivate that Mod Podge that you have on there. And just work your way out until your entire design is ironed onto the background. Next, you will just want to add another thin coat of Mod Podge over your entire image and the background. And this just helps seal your image down, and also it will help it blend into the background, and you won't even be able to tell that it was printed out on tissue paper and ironed onto this piece. Sometimes when you add Mod Podge to an image like this, it does look like the ink is running or streaked, but it will dry clear and you won't be able to see any residual ink where it shouldn't be. And remember, at the beginning of this project, I did not go all the way to the edge with my paint and the crackle effect, so I just added some nautical rope that I had picked up at Walmart. Just went around the edge with some hot glue, and I used a skewer to help me get that applied to the corners, and this just gives your piece a finished look and adds some texture. Since this piece was unfinished, you will need to add a hanger to the back so that whoever you are gifting it to will be able to display it. So I just found the center of the back and just made some marks so I could apply a hanger. And I'm not sure exactly what these hangers are called. I call them like a claw hanger. I'm not sure. That's probably not the right term for those. I just marked the little circles where the nails needed to go, and I pre-nailed just a little bit so it would be easier for me to nail those in completely and secure my hanger. And once you have that done, your piece is ready to be wrapped and gifted. This next project is perfect for your own kitchen decor for Christmas, or it makes a great gift for someone that really enjoys baking. And I just started out with this bamboo cutting board that I had got from the Dollar Tree. Just taped off a portion on the bottom and painted that with some of the Waverly chalk paint in white. paint was drying, I grabbed a couple of these gingerbread men that I had in my stash. Can't even remember where they came from. I've had them for a while. And I just did a coat of my Waverly Antique Wax. Just removed any of the excess with a paper towel and let those dry really well before I added some embellishments. To add my decoration to my little gingerbread men, I grabbed a couple of my acrylic paint pens and I just added the eyes, the mouth, and some buttons and the little squiggles around the arms and the legs in white to look like the icing. And then I just took my red acrylic paint pen and added just a little bow tie on each of the gingerbread men, and took my white pen again and added just some little highlights to the bow tie. And these guys are super cute, and that's all I did to them. Chalk paint had dried, it was time to add the vinyl decal that I have chosen for this little project. And I think I found this one on Creative Fabrica as well. And I just measured my cutting board and sized my decal. And I just cut that out with my Cricut Maker. And I tried to center this actually over to the right a little bit because I have something to add to the left side. And this vinyl gave me a lot of issues. It stuck great to the painted portion of the sign, but the wooden part, it just would not stick at all. So you can see the vinyl that did stick down really well. Even for whatever reason, the word stuff stuck really well on the wooden part of the cutting board. So I decided to go in with some Mod Podge and just put a thin layer over the wood part of the cutting board, and I even went over the word stuff to make sure that stuck really well. And I'll let that dry before trying to reapply my decal for the second time. So hindsight is 20/20, as they say, and I should have applied Mod Podge to start with before I tried to apply my decal, but I didn't, so I had an extra step. So you guys, if you do this project, just be sure you add your Mod Podge first. So I just went back in with my decal and tried to line that up with the other words that were already applied. And even with the Mod Podge layer, this vinyl still did not want to adhere to this cutting board. There were some areas that I basically had to just go in and put down by hand, but I was finally able to get everything applied, and it looks really cute once it got on there. It just gave me a lot of trouble initially to get everything to stick down. And once I got it stuck down, I just went back in and added some more Mod Podge over that additional vinyl that I put to make sure that none of that would peel up. I had this little mini whisk that I had picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I knew I wanted to add that to my cutting board. And I just cut a piece of red, green, and white baker's twine and tied that to the handle of the whisk. And I tried to get that lined up and just put that on my cutting board where I knew I needed to glue it down so it wouldn't hinder my sign from sitting on the kitchen counter, and just took some hot glue and glued that to the cutting board. Grabbed my little gingerbread men once they were dried, and I just put them down and lined them up so they wouldn't cover any of the wording on the cutting board. And I just took some hot glue and attached those and made sure they were nice and secure. I learned this trick from Whitney over at Whiskey and Wit. And just to make a stand for my sign, I just took the clothespin and removed that metal hinge from the middle portion. So I have two pieces now, and I just glued those to the back of my cutting board, and that just makes it able to stand up and be displayed. This next project is a super quick and simple gift idea if you need some last minute ideas, and it is chocolate gravy mix. It only has 3 ingredients: sugar, flour, and I use gluten-free flour for my family, and cocoa powder. You just add those to a mixing bowl and whisk them up to remove any of the lumps, and add your mix to a mason jar. And you can just add some fabric to the top of this, and it is a super sweet gift that you can give. And I would love to know how many of you have ever had chocolate gravy. Is this something that your family enjoys, or maybe it's just something that we have here in our area? But we eat it at Christmas time and birthdays, and that's about it, since it is not the healthiest thing that you can have. I designed these printable tags in Canva and just printed those out, and these are just the instructions on how to make your chocolate gravy. So I cut out the ones that I would need for my mason jars, and I punched a hole in the top and just added some baker's twine and tied those to the top of my jars, and these were ready to gift. I think this project might be my favorite one from today's video. Every year I like to make a new Christmas ornament for our tree, or as gifts. I like to personalize them and give them to family and friends, and I had the idea to make this version this year. So I got these ornaments from Hobby Lobby, and they are glass. I wanted plastic ones, but unfortunately I couldn't find any of them this year at Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby, so I just got these, and they were on sale 50% off. So I was just very careful as I was working with these, and I took some of the acrylic paint from Folk Art in white, just put that into the ornaments and tried to just get that shaken around and completely coated the inside of the ornament. Once I had the inside of my ornament completely coated, I put these upside down into a plastic cup just to drain out any of that excess paint, and I just pushed it down pretty far into the cup so I made sure that it wouldn't tip over and break. After I had done a couple of these ornaments, I figured out an easier way to get the paint in there that I wanted to show you guys. I just twisted the ornament as I was squeezing the paint in there, and that gave a little bit better coverage in the beginning, and it was easier to just rotate the ornament and completely cover up any of that glass that you could see. the same technique as I did for the Highland cow sign that I made in the beginning of the video. I just found some vintage Christmas ornament designs that I really liked, and I uploaded those to Canva and I printed them out on the tissue paper. It's the same steps as before. I just put that into my printer face side down, made sure all of the edges were taped down really well, and just removed that tape and got the designs ready to cut out. My ornaments are 4 inches in diameter, so I sized my images to about 3.5 inches, and I made sure they were in a circle design, which made it easier to cut out. Some of them did have a border that I was able to go by, and I just left a little bit of excess of the tissue paper around the edge and just went around each image and got those ready to apply to the ornaments. To apply your image to your ornament, you just need to take some Mod Podge and put a thin layer around the front of your ornament, and you will center your image, your design, as best as you can on your ornament, and you'll just start working from the center out, just being careful not to put any holes or rip your design in any way, and you'll just press pretty firmly to get those bubbles out, and it works really well. It applied very well to my ornament. I didn't have any issues with getting that to go down, and just go around the edges and you can just gently press out some of those creased sections of your tissue paper. I just repeated those steps with each of my ornaments, and I just set those aside to dry until they were ready for the next step of this project. After your image has completely dried, you'll just want to go over the top with another thin layer of Mod Podge. This just makes sure that your image is very well adhered to your ornament, and it will help remove some of those additional wrinkles that you might have around the edges. Before your Mod Podge dries, you can just take some glitter and add to the top of your ornament. That just gives these an extra Christmas sparkle that looks really pretty when the Christmas lights hit them. And just tap off the excess. And you can add a spray adhesive to the tops of your ornaments to keep that glitter from falling off, but once everything is dry, these are ready to add the toppers back, and these are ready to be hung on the tree. These ornaments were good to go as is, so you can skip this step if you want to, but I decided to add some bows to mine just to give them just a little extra pop of color. And once I had my bows added, I was ready to display them. This is another great mason jar gift idea. It's called 5-bean soup, and it's very quick and easy to make. You just need a few ingredients, and I will try to either link the recipe in the description box or type it up for you. But it is really quick to make, and you can do several quarts or jars at one time. I added my seasonings first to my jar, and those were dried onion, paprika, dried oregano, garlic powder, and dry mustard. And then you just start layering in your dried beans. So there's kidney beans, white beans, black beans, pinto beans, and dried split peas. And you'll just put those in a couple of layers, and it's 1 cup of each. And I found this recipe on Pinterest, and they have lots of other great ideas there, but this one came from thecountrysheepcottage.net. I love to give edible gifts at Christmas time. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I just feel like that people may use those more than something else that you might give them. And for this one, I created a recipe card that I just printed out, and I will add that to each gift bag. And to finish these off, I added some fabric to the top, and these make a perfect last minute gift idea. They're so quick and easy to make, and you can make several of these at the same time. And I actually had enough of the ingredients left over that I made a few of these for myself, and I'm going to have those in my pantry to use this winter. So this last project you can give as a gift or keep it for yourself like I did. I wanted to make a pillow covering for some of my older pillows that I have on my couch in my living room. And I just grabbed some of these really pretty placemats from the Dollar Tree, and I just lined them up to see if they would even fit my pillow. And I had to put 2 pieces together to make a front and a back panel. And I just pinned those together. You can see where I'm doing that. It probably makes more sense to watch it than me try to describe what I'm doing. But I just pinned the bottom piece, and then I turned that over and pinned the back piece. And these will both be a front and a back panel for my pillow covering. So hopefully you can see here that you will have 2 rows of pins for each of your panel pieces for your pillowcase. You'll have one on the back side and one on the front. And once you get these pinned, then you're ready to take this to your sewing machine and sew that together. I am not a professional seamstress by any means. I can do straight lines pretty good, and that's about it. So I did have to do a few practice runs before I actually sewed these panel pieces together, because it had been such a long time since I have used my sewing machine. But you'll just want to do a straight stitch across both of your areas there that you have the pins, and just make sure that you do a reverse stitch at the beginning and the end to make sure your seam is very secure. And you'll just repeat that process for the other panel piece that you have. So just remember that you will have 2 different seams in both your front and your back panel piece. I wanted my pillow cover to be removable, so I used some of these iron-on Velcro strips that I've had in my stash for quite a while, and these are really easy to use. You just remove them from the plastic backing that they come on, and just place them where you want your closure to be on your pillowcase. And I didn't have enough of these to go all the way across, but that worked in my favor actually in the end. So I just tried to center them as best as I could on each of the panels of my pillow covering. To line up the Velcro on my second panel piece, I just put it underneath the first one that I had applied the Velcro to. Just matched that up, and this has a sticky backing, so it's easy to apply until you are ready to iron that on to your fabric piece. Have your Velcro applied where you want it, it's time to iron that on to your panel pieces. Just follow the instructions for whatever type of iron-on Velcro that you may pick up. Mine, I was supposed to use a protective covering, turn the iron on the highest setting, and also have the steam setting turned on. And you just apply pressure for about 90 seconds, just moving your iron back and forth, and that will be sure to get your Velcro well applied to your fabric. When you have your Velcro applied to both pieces of your pillow covering, it's time to line these up and pin them together so you can sew this closed. And just keep in mind, these were Dollar Tree placemats, so they were not cut perfectly. So I did have some issues getting those lined up correctly, but my Velcro not being exactly all the way across helped me be able to straighten that a little bit. So then I just went around the sides and the top with some pins and got that ready to sew. Now it's time to sew your pillow covering front and back panels completely together. And just be careful when you go over the areas where you have sewn those two pieces together when you made your front and your back piece. There's some extra bulky fabric there, so just kind of go slow over those areas. And sometimes I like to do reverse stitching there just to make sure all the stitches will hold and stay in place. And you'll just go around both sides and the top of your pillow covering. When you have your three sides stitched together, then you'll just take your pillow covering and trim up any of your loose threads that you have, and just make sure all of your stitching looks good and it's ready to put the pillow in. Since I use the Velcro, it is super easy to get my pillow into this pillowcase, and it fit almost perfectly. And the finished size of this pillow covering was about 17.5 inches tall and 18 inches wide. And you can do this technique for any of the placemats that Dollar Tree may have out, and you can just replace them for each season and your decor. For this first project, I used a mini charcuterie board that I picked up at Hobby Lobby for 50% off, and I made another one of these in the fall that I paired with one of my crocheted hanging baskets, and I put it with my china cabinet in my dining room, and it looks really cute. This project is very simple to make. I just used some washi tape to tape off the bottom portion of my little charcuterie board, and I mixed up some Waverly chalk paint in crimson and just a little bit of black to tone down that red color and give me this rusty red that I really like this year for Christmas. So I just painted the bottom, the sides, and the back with one good coat, and I just set that aside to dry. After my paint had dried, I just removed my washi tape and I took a sanding block that I got from the Dollar Tree and just went around the edges and also just the bottom of the little board, and got some good distressing there, which you know I love so far. And I just like adding this antique rustic look to all of my pieces. It just gives that a vintage country feel, in my opinion. Now for the fun part, getting to add all of the embellishments to your piece. I had some of this white berry garland that I got from the Dollar Tree, I believe, and I just made a small little wreath by wrapping it around my 2 fingers, and I hot glued that to the top of my board. And on camera I just showed that I glued the top part down. I did go back and glue the bottom as well, just to make sure that was really secured there and that it wouldn't fall off. Then I had some of this really glittery pick from Walmart, and I was just trying to see if this would look well with the berry garland. It's not very Christmassy colors, but they're kind of muted colors, and I really did like the way that looked. But I just took 2 of these bigger pieces and trimmed them down just a little bit because they were a little too big for my liking. And it does leave a lot of glitter, and glitter is my nemesis. It seems to multiply and just get everywhere, and it stays around until the 4th of July, I think. But anyway, I like to add a little bit of glitter to things every now and then. It just gives a little bit of sparkle to your piece. So I just glued those down and tried to remove as much glitter as I could from the top of my board, and I started adding these wood letter tiles, and I picked up this pack from the dollar store, and I tried to center these as best as I could on my board. Just get those lined up, and I started with the E in the center and just worked my way out with my bottom word, and then my top word I just tried to line up the A and the R to start with. Just try to center it as best as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect because it's your creation, and a little imperfections here and there I think give your things character. I had this little mini wooden truck that I got in a pack of 54 pieces from Hobby Lobby. This pack has Santa Claus, stockings, candy canes, gingerbread men, snowmen, all the Christmas things, and I will probably never get through all of these or use all of them with my projects, but they were cute, so I had to grab them. But I just took some Sharpies and colored in the tree and the body of the truck. I wasn't too sure about this red color, if it would clash with the rusty red on the board, but I think it turns out really cute in the end. You'll just have to let me know what you think, if you think I should have went with a different color for the truck. And I did use a couple of alcohol markers as well to do the rims and the tires on the wheels. I just took some hot glue and glued down my truck to the bottom part of the board. And to finish off this project, I just took a small piece of jute twine and tied a shoelace bow and glued that to the top of the wreath. This project couldn't get any easier. I actually was cooking supper at the same time that I was working on these. I found these plates at the Dollar Tree, and they are glass plates, not their typical plastic ones. And I started out by cleaning the surface of both plates really well, and I just used a combination of vinegar and water just so my surface would be free of any lint or dust, and just to get them ready for the transfers that I'm going to be putting on these plates. I know a lot of times you can find rub-on transfers at the Dollar Tree, but I wasn't able to find any at my local stores this year for Christmas. So I found this pack on Amazon, and I will see if I can find the link and put that in the description box. I believe this one was called Vintage Christmas Newsletter. This one has lots of vibrant colors and some beautiful pieces to pick from. And I just wanted to show you guys all of the different choices that you have in this pack. It comes with several different sheets, but one thing I would say about this pack, it does have quite a strong odor to it, so just be aware of that before you make this purchase. Once you pick the designs that you want to use on your plates, you just cut out around each design, just trying to get as close as you can to the outline there. And I picked a couple of these pieces that I really enjoy. Cardinals have a special meaning for me all year long, not just at Christmas, and this was just a beautiful one. Then you just want to center your design on your plate, and these transfers stick really well. I didn't have any issues with this one trying to get it to transfer to the plate, and I just used a jumbo popsicle stick to rub over the top of my design, and the transfer sheet itself stuck incredibly well to this design, so it did give me a little trouble wanting to pull that up there. It was so super sticky, and I just did that same process for my second plate, and that one gave me a little bit more trouble than the first one. It wanted to bubble up just a little bit more, so I'm not sure exactly what happened with that one, but I just tried to rub over it extra well with my popsicle stick, and then once I moved the transfer sheet, I went over it again with my thumb and my index finger just to try to get out some more of those bubbles. But even with that, just a little bit of a setback, these still turned out really well, and they look great in my dining room beside my china cabinet. I started this project by working on the shadow box, and this particular box I believe I found at Michael's back in the summer. It was in their 4th of July selection, and I think I got it for 90% off, so it was maybe $1 or $2 at the most. And the first thing I did, I started by just painting the inside edges with some of the Waverly chalk paint in white, just so that it would match the outside edges of my box. And I wasn't super concerned about getting total coverage in the sides. I just wanted it to look a little rustic. And the same thing for just the outer edge. I just went across that with just a light coat of my chalk paint. I wanted some of the brown of the box to show through, just just to give me that rustic look that I like really well for all of my decor pieces. And once you finish all of your painting around the inside and the outer edges, just set your box aside to dry so you can start on the next step of this project. This wooden nativity set came from the Dollar Tree, and I wanted my pieces to sit flush in my shadow box, so I just took my box cutter and trimmed off those wooden tabs that each piece had on the bottom, and I took my emery board and just filed off those rough edges to get my pieces smooth. Next, I just painted each of my nativity pieces with my Waverly chalk paint and ink, and this only took one coat for each piece, and I only painted the front of these, except for Joseph, because I realized that I had painted him facing the same direction as Mary, so I did have to go back in and paint the other side, and then I just put each of these aside to dry. I wanted to add a neutral background to my shadow box. I wanted the nativity to be the focal point, and I found this white birch tree sheet out of this scrapbook paper pack that I had from Michael's, and I believe I found this one for 50% off. And I just traced the outside edge of my shadow box to give me the approximate size that I needed to fit on the inside, and I just cut that out. And then I do just take the piece of paper and lay it over the top of my box and kind of press down firmly along each edge, and that gave me just a little template to go by to cut off some of this extra paper that I had, because I knew that wouldn't fit on the inside of my box, and that seemed to work very well for me. I hope you guys can see that on camera, but it just gave me some lines to follow to trim up my piece of paper so I could get that glued down inside my box. And I just took an Elmer's glue stick and put that down in the box and just secured my paper using that glue. Once I got my paper secured and in place, I did have to go back in with just a little bit of the chalk paint and kind of fill in some of the gaps that were left in the corners between the box and the paper. I grabbed some of these small wooden blocks that I had on hand, and I did go ahead and paint one of those with the chalk paint and ink, and I wanted to use these to glue to the back of each of my nativity pieces, so I would have a little bit more surface area to glue down to my box. And the black one I wanted to use for the manger. I didn't want any of that natural wood showing through the gap at the bottom of that piece. Once everything was painted and I had my wooden blocks glued to my pieces, I started to assemble my shadow box. So the first piece that I put down was the background piece for the stable, and I just took some hot glue and centered that in the back. And then I just took all of the remaining figures and kind of set them up before gluing them down to see what placement I liked the best. And I just secured each of these pieces with a little bit of hot glue on the bottom of those small wooden blocks. finish up my shadow box, I just tied a piece of jute and a shoelace bow. Just glued that in the corner. And I knew I wanted this to light up, so I had some fairy lights that I used, and I just put those behind each of the figures. I didn't want them to come up above Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus. I just wanted the light to be coming from behind them, and I just put those down in behind each of the figurines, and these fairy lights worked really well to get positioned into place. And then I just glued the battery pack on the back of the box. So I started this project thinking, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. I've done one of these before. It's going to be super easy. No issues, no mishaps, none of that. Well, that's not exactly what happened with this project, as you guys will see throughout the rest of this video. I just took one of these canvases that I had done a couple of years ago that I put on my mantle, and I wanted to do a reverse canvas. So I just started by removing all of the staples from the outside of my canvas, and as I was doing that, some of these were really hard to get out of there. They were like almost embedded into the wood, and I did poke a hole in my canvas. So I was like, well, that's no big deal. I can just cover that with my vinyl that I'm going to put on here. But that was just the beginning of the mishaps with this project, as you guys will see. So then I just took some of the Waverly Antique Wax and stained all of the outside edges of my frame. And I just put a liberal amount on there and just went back over this antique wax with a paper towel to remove the excess. And I just let that dry really well while I was working on the rest of this project. I used my Cricut Maker to cut out this HTV, and since it was such a bigger piece, I did have to cut up my vinyl into smaller sections so I could place them on the canvas where I wanted them. So I just cut each of those out and just weeded out each section and got that ready to iron on to my canvas. Positioned each of the sections of my vinyl onto my canvas, and I tried to center those as best as I could, and just adjusted them and made sure I liked the placement where everything was. And I also tried to make sure that none of the carrier sheets were overlapping, or none of it was under the vinyl, and that wouldn't prohibit the vinyl from being ironed onto the canvas well. So just be sure that you keep an eye on that when you're doing any projects with HTV. And here's where things start to go south once again with this project. I got in a hurry and I decided I didn't need to use one of these protective coverings as I was ironing on my vinyl. Maybe you can see the S there in is. The heat press was too hot and it melted that vinyl and messed that up, but I thought I could fix that too. I could have fixed the S and I could have fixed the hole, but you can't fix your mistakes when you don't measure correctly to start with, so it didn't fit. Okay, So after my initial disgust and annoyance at myself for not measuring correctly in the first place from the inside edges of the frame, I just repeated my steps that I had already done. I had to cut out my vinyl again and weed that out, get it placed on my canvas and iron that on. And this time I was sure to use the protective covering there, which is a pillowcase, and I used that before I started the iron-on process. And I was ready to secure the canvas to the frame. So I just centered that as best as I could and just took some staples and went around the outside edges of my frame, kind of stretching tightly from one side to the other. And I will say I do like this glitter HTV that I wound up using the second time around better than the original vinyl that I used, so I guess it wasn't a complete waste of my time maybe. And then I just trimmed the excess canvas away from the frame and this project was done. Okay. This ladder in a 2-pack from Hobby Lobby, and I don't really decorate with apples or anything like that, so I thought this would be perfect to DIY with for the Christmas season. So I just removed the little hanger at the top, and it was pretty easy to take off of there. I just had to use my staple puller to remove that staple, and I set aside the little bow because I will reuse that. And I just took some of my Waverly chalk paint in white and painted over the letters on the sign, and this did take about 3 good coats to cover up the writing on the sign. I've mentioned before that we homeschool, so a lot of my projects I need to have them be quick and simple because I'm usually doing other things at the same time as crafting. So I may be helping kids with math or language or something else like that, or I'll usually have laundry going, dishwasher running, working on a meal for the day. So all of my projects just need to be something simple that I can do while I have these other things going on, and this project definitely fit the bill for that. So once my chalk paint had dried completely, I just went in with a pencil and wrote out the words hot chocolate. This is going to go with my little hot chocolate bar, which I will show you guys all of these projects together once they're all completed. And I just wrote that out first with my pencil and went back over that with a paint pen. I don't think I have the best handwriting, but I did as best as I could on this small sign. And I just added a little bit of decorative embellishments around the edge of my sign. And then I wanted to just distress the ladder a little bit so it would match the rest of my decor in the kitchen. So I just took some of the Waverly chalk paint in white and just went around each of the edges and the rungs of the ladder just to add that distressed look. And just to finish off this really quick project, I just went back in with some hot glue and reattached my sign. as well as the red and white checked bow. And then I just added a little bit of red, green, and white baker's twine at the end to go over the original bow. Seen other YouTubers make these faux hot chocolates and faux sweets for their kitchen and dining room, and I wanted to try them myself this year. I did one for fall that was a pumpkin spice latte, and this one will be a hot chocolate. I found this mug at my local thrift store, and I thought it was the perfect size and the shape to do this with. So I just took my Waverly chalk paint in the color Truffle, and I had started at the bottom, trying to get coverage as good as possible. It's a little bit difficult with this foam brush for some reason, but it did take 2 coats. To make the whipped cream topper for my hot chocolate, I just took some of the spackling that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and I just put that into a plastic cup and added some water to that. And I did use warm water, and that seemed to help mix in a little bit better. My spackling was pretty dry, so it took quite a bit of water, and I just mixed that really well and got the consistency that I wanted, so I would be able to pipe that onto my topper. And if you add too much water, you can just add a little bit more spackling in there and just keep mixing until you get a consistency that you're happy with. I had a small home-based cake business several years ago, and I learned this trick to fill your piping bags. It's just to put them down into a cup and put your icing, or spackling in this case, in your bag, and just fill that up. It just makes it a whole lot easier than trying to hold your bag and fill it at the same time. And then you're just able to remove your bag from the cup and just twist the top to get your icing down to the bottom of your tip, and then you can just start piping whatever it is that you need to. And my topper I actually made before I started filming YouTube videos. It was just a piece of cardboard, and I cut the bottom off of a styrofoam ball and just hot glued that to the piece of cardboard. So I just took my spackling and just covered the styrofoam as best as I could and tried to fill in any of the gaps around the cardboard. To decorate my topper, I took this pack of faux sprinkles that I got from Amazon, and I just picked out the peppermint and the chocolate chip pieces, and I sprinkled those all around the spackling and made sure to stick them in here and there if they didn't want to stick too well to the spackling. Didn't have any paper straws or anything else like that that I thought would look good as a straw in my topper for my hot chocolate, so I just took a red glue stick and just trimmed it off a little bit so it would be the right length, and then I took some baker's twine and just secured that at the top with some hot glue and wrapped that around the glue stick to make it kind of look like a candy cane of sorts. And then I secured that at the bottom with some more hot glue, and I added just one of the little peppermint pieces to the top of my straw and just placed that into my topper. So I just continued around the rim of my mug, and I was just trying to cover up the cardboard and the styrofoam that you could still see. And I was having all kinds of problems with glue guns for this project. This was the second one that I used, and the glue just didn't want to come out, but I did the best as I could to make some drips because I wanted the whipped cream to look like it was melting around the rim of the hot chocolate. The next sweet treat that I wanted to make was a couple of cupcakes, and to start this project I just glued down a couple of small styrofoam balls into some cupcake wrappers, and I had some of the leftover spackling that I had used for my hot chocolate topper, and I just went around those styrofoam balls with the spackling to make my icing. And I tried to fill in the gaps, but I did run out of spackling. I should have had just a little bit more for this project. I still had some gaps between my quote cupcake and the wrapper for this project, so I just went around the styrofoam ball and tried to fold up the cupcake wrapper just a little bit and stick that into the spackling, so it would be secure and look more like an actual cupcake and not a styrofoam ball. I should have started this project differently, but I will show you something that I did do in the end to this to kind of remedy that. And then I just added some of these little faux candy canes and red and green Christmas trees that I had picked up from Hobby Lobby. And I also added some red and white glitter to the tops of my cupcakes just to give them a little bit of Christmas sparkle. While I was making the cupcakes, I realized that I should have put something flat on the bottom of the wrapper to help them be more stable. So what I did, I just cut a small piece of cardboard and glued into the bottom of another cupcake wrapper and just glued down the one that I had already made to that piece of cardboard. And then I just folded up the wrapper once again and put some hot glue here and there so it would fold over and look nice. A serving tray or a riser for my hot chocolate mug, and to do that I just used a candlestick and a little candle tray from the Dollar Tree, and I took some hot glue and attached those pieces together, and I just put a weight on top of that and let that set up overnight. I took my tray outside and used some of the Krylon Fusion spray paint in the hammered cocoa brown. This is one of my favorite colors right now, and I just gave my tray one good coat of this spray paint, and it dries really quickly, so I was able to do this in about, I don't know, 30 minutes maybe, and I just did some touch-ups to a few of the areas that were harder to get to. Once my piece was dry, I brought it back in and it was ready to add a little bit of distressing to. I just took my Waverly chalk paint in white and just very lightly went around the rim of the tray and also around the base just to give it a little bit more dimension, and I tried to have this look the opposite of some of the other decor pieces that this is going to be setting up next to. Here's how everything looks set up, all of the DIYs that I've been working on for my hot chocolate bar. And I don't have a whole lot of counter space to put a lot of items, so I just try to utilize what space that I do have. Just do some small pieces to add in, and I think this turned out really cute. And we don't do a whole lot of different items in our hot chocolate either, so my kids just like marshmallows and some candy canes and maybe some extra chocolate syrup and sprinkles every now and then. But I hope this gives you guys some ideas for your space. this project, you will need a small wooden block, and I picked this one up at Hobby Lobby in the clearance section. Just removed the sticker that was on the front and sanded down that paper to get it a little bit smoother to paint. And I just took some of the Waverly chalk paint in crimson and added a little bit of black, and this gets me that rusty red color that I like. And I just painted the front and the sides of my block, and it took one coat on the front, and then I did just a couple of coats on each of the sides to make sure that I had really good coverage. Once the paint had dried, I just went in with a piece of sandpaper and distressed the edges, and I picked up this pack from the Dollar Tree that had different grit sizes of sandpaper, and I believe the one that I used for this project was an 80 grit, and it worked really well for what I needed to do with it. One of our favorite Christmas traditions is baking cookies each year, and I love to use my granny's recipes that I made with her when I was a kid, and I found the perfect cut file that was already designed for me on Creative Fabrica, and I just cut that out with my Cricut Maker and put that on a transfer sheet and just applied that to my block. And I used this paper transfer tape. And the only thing I don't like about this is it's so cloudy and it makes it hard to center your vinyl onto your project, which I had some issues with, and then I wasn't able to pull that up and remove it, but I will show you guys what I did to fix that. This next project is a perfect one to make for Christmas gifts. I'm doing several of these this year for different people, and you will need some of the pot holders that you can find from the Dollar Tree that have just the smooth fabric pocket on the front, and you will need some iron-on vinyl, and you'll need a couple of goodies to put into the pocket of your pot holder. So the first thing you want to do is find some cut files for these, and I actually found several bundles on Creative Fabrica, and I'll see if I can link those in the description, but they're already perfectly put together. I didn't have to do anything but size them to fit my pot holder, and then I just cut out several at once and weeded them out and got them ready to iron on to the pot holders. Once my designs were weeded out and ready to go, I got my Cricut press heated up and I was ready to apply them to the pot holders. So I just warmed up the front of the pot holder there for just a few seconds and centered my design and covered that with my protective covering. and I just iron that on according to the instructions for my vinyl. And this particular one took about 25 to 30 seconds on about 300 degrees. I did have to adjust the temperature just a little bit to get that adhered well. And then I just removed the transfer sheet, and these are super cute. I'm making several of these all at one time. Now for the fun part. You get to add all of your goodies to your pot holder, and you can personalize these for each individual, or you can just do what I did and I got the same things to put in each pot holder. It just makes it a little bit easier, but you can switch out the cookie mix and do whatever kind of flavors that you would like to do, but these are a really cute gift idea.